Hi girls, this lesson is going to go through measures of center from tables and also measures of spread. So last lesson we got up to this point here, so now we'll start from here. Okay, measures of center from tables. So measures of center, hopefully you remember, are mean, mode and median. They're all different ways of kind of finding the average. So in frequency tables, we can add an FX column to find the mean and a cumulative frequency column to find the median. So hopefully you remember that FX actually means the frequency F times the scores X. So if you remember, this symbol here means the mean equals the sum or total of the FX column divided by the total of the frequency column. You should have looked at it last year, but it's okay if you don't remember. So here's an example. So complete the following frequency table. So here we've got our scores here. So maybe they're like quiz scores out of 10. But over here, the F is the frequency of each. So if this was like quiz scores, this might mean 3 people got a score of 2. And 4 people got a score of 7, for instance. Okay. And then we've got a total here. So now we're going to focus on finding the FX column, so filling in the FX column. So again, FX means F times X. So for the first value here, I just want to do 3 times 2, which is 6. That's very easy. Here, 5 times 3, which is 15, and so forth. So 4 8s are 32, 5 times 12 is 60, 6 7s are 42, 7 4s are 28. Now there's also a total column. That means we just add up everything in the column, and it also can be written as the sum of F equals, and then whatever the total is, and the sum of FX. You don't have to put that in. It's just important that if you see those symbols in the textbook or the exam, you understand that they just mean the total. Okay, so if you add all the F column up, you get 8, 16, 28, 35, 39, I think. And then add the FX column, you probably need a calculator. And I did on the calculator and I got 183. Hopefully I got that right. Okay, now we want to use the table to find the mode, median and mean. Now I know I've still got another column, but I just want to show you that you don't need the CF column to find all of them. First of all, for the mode, we actually didn't need to even do the FX column, because in fact the mode is just the score with the highest frequency. So I don't care about FX, I just care about F. So there's the highest frequency, and that corresponds to the score of 5. So the mode is the 5, and that's it. So we didn't even need the FX column for that one. However, for the mean, just like on the previous page, the mean is the total of the FX column, which is 183, divided by the total of the F column, which is 39. Now, obviously in a test or an exam, you're going to do that to 3 significant figures. If this was a paper 1, you'd probably just leave it like that as 183 over 39. But because we have calculators at the moment, we can find the decimal. But it is important to realize that if this was a paper 2, the answer is 4.69. If this was a paper 2, as we've done before, you'd probably just put all of this into a spreadsheet and let it find the mean and median for you. But we're kind of pretending it's a paper 1 in a way and finding it for ourselves. So we have the mode and the mean. Now we want to find the median. Now technically you can find it as it is. And but the cumulative frequency column, this last one, is quite helpful if we use that. Okay, so I just want to rub out a little bit. Got a lot going on. Okay, so cumulative frequency, what's that? You should have looked in your term, but let's have a look. Basically, for the first one, it's just the same as the frequency. But then for the next one, you add up the frequency for that row plus all the previous ones, so that's an 8, 5 plus 3. For the next one, you add up that one and all the previous one, so that's 3 plus 5 plus 8, which is 16, and so forth. For the next one, you add up all the previous. A shorter cut is just to get this 16 and then add it up to the next one, and keep doing it that way. So that's 28, and then add it to the 7, that's 35, then add it to the 4, that's 39. So now, and it always should occur that the last number here equals this total number of the frequencies here. If they don't match up, then something's gone wrong. Okay, so what does all that mean? Now, it's just a little bit easier to find the median this way, okay? So now, if we remember, the median is the n plus 1 over 2 score. So median is, now there are 39 scores altogether, so that's n, plus 1 over 2, well that's 40 over 2, which is 20, so it's the 20th score, not 20, the 20th score. Okay, so we can look down this column and find where that is. So that's 3 scores, that's 8 scores, that's 16 scores. I'm not up to 20 yet, so I keep going. And oh, that's 28 scores. That means the 20th score must be within the scores there. Because above that, from here and up, that was only 16 scores. So I look across, oh yeah, this must be the median, 5. So the mode and the median were equal, and that often is the case. So that's how you do it in a more paper one-like way. But if it was paper one, I think this would have to be a bit nicer and be a nice whole number. Easier numbers to work with if it was paper one. Okay, so now what about if it was in a class? That's when we use the midpoint or class center. Okay, I've used the word midpoint here. It's also called the class center, like we discussed probably last time. Okay, so in here, we did an example like this before. So here, we've got approximate the mean of the following times for swimming a 50-meter pool in seconds. So this group here is all the people that swam it between 30 and 39 seconds, so that's 4. And this one here is between 40 and 49. Probably not the best example just because it's continuous data, and so someone could have gotten 39.5. And yeah, but anyway, we'll keep going with it. So now, what's the midpoint of this data? If you remember, for the class center or midpoint, you add the two end values, 30 plus 39, and divide it by 2, which is 69 divided by 2, which is, I think, 34.5. So that's the midpoint. And then you might notice, because they're kind of moving in a pattern, it's like just 40 to 49, 50 to 59. It's all going to continue in this way. So the next one's going to be 44.5. The next one's going to be 54.5, and so forth. Okay. Now, just so you know, for the totals, we really only need the total of the F column and the total of the FX column, because that's what you need for mean. Because mean, which is what we want to find, is the sum of the FX column and the sum of the F column. So I don't need to worry about this one. I can black that out. Okay, so the sum of the F column, that's 10, 19, 29, 39, 41, I believe. Now, fx, so what do we multiply by? Well, this is the whole reason we've bothered finding the midpoints, because I can't do 4 times this. It's a class. It's like multiple values. I can't multiply them. But I can multiply 4 by the midpoint. So that's how that would work. So 4 times 34.5 is, I think, I'm not sure actually. I'm going to put that, but I might double check it. Okay, so that was correct just by doing 4 times 34.5. So take a moment now and use your calculator to fill in the rest of fx. Okay, so they're the values I got. And then to add them all up, you get something like 2,414.5. Now, you might be thinking, well, why write that many significant figures when we only really need to do 3. Keeping in mind the question is asking for the mean, so I don't want to round too much until the very, very end. So to find the mean, I get this number and divided by this number, so it's 2,414.5 over 41. And I got 58.9 to 3 significant figures, or 0.89 to 4 significant figures. So that's what I found. So in other words, the average time approximately, and I probably should be using approximate symbols, is 58.89. The reason we say approximately is not just because we rounded it in decimal places, but because we're not actually working with the original exact times. We're working with midpoints of the groups of times. So we're not even working with the actual times the swimmers did. So that's why it's always estimate the mean, approximate the mean in these kind of questions when you've got classes. Okay, so the set work for that is 20B.2, just alternate questions, and 20B.3. I've got a feeling B.3 isn't very long, and that's why I haven't said alternate, but if it is long, just do alternate. Okay, I would like to keep going though, because the next part is quite easy and quite short. Okay, so measures of spread. We have certain tools to measure how spread out our data is around the mean. So these are range, which you've been using since like year 9 or year 8, which is just the highest score minus the lowest score. The interquartile range, which you might have seen before, I'll show you in a second, and the standard deviation. And we generally use the calculator to find the standard deviation for us. It's not really a paper 1 type question. Okay, so first let's look at quartiles to understand what the interquartile range is. When data is divided into quarters, we get quartiles. So the lower quartile, or quartile 1, is the middle value of the lower half of the scores. The median, which is also known as Q2, is the middle value of all the scores. And the upper quartile, Q3, is the middle value of the upper half of the scores. And otherwise known as like the lower quartile and upper quartile, they're kind of like also known as the 25% mark and the 75% mark, whereas the median is like the 50% mark in the middle. And so the interquartile range, that means interquartile range, is just the upper quartile minus the lower quartile, or in other words, Q3 minus Q1. So we don't use the median in the interquartile range. So I'll show you how to work all that out. Okay, 15 students sat a test, and their scores were as follows. Find the mean, the lower quartile, the upper quartile, the range, and the interquartile range. Now these 5 values are also called the 5-point summary, and that might come up later anyway, but just letting you know. If you are asked to find the 5-point summary, these 5 values here are what they're talking about. Okay, well, if I want to find the median, I need to actually write these in order. So take a moment now and write them in order. A nice way to do that is to write them directly underneath each number to make sure you get the right number of them. So I put the 1 underneath the 7, and I'll cross out the 1 so I don't accidentally count it again, and so forth. So 2, 3... Okay, you keep going, and then check yours with mine. Okay, so that looks like that's the actual order. So now we can find the median. So if we look at all that, it's 15. Now the middle of 15 is, well, remember the median is n plus 1 divided by 2. So 15 plus 1 is 16, divided by 2 is 8. So it should be the 8th score. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that there is Q2, or in other words, the median. So let's write that down. For A, the median, and you could just write Q2 equals 6. Okay, now we want to find the lower quartile. Now to do that, we find the median of the lower half. Half is actually a bit of a tricky word, but anyway, what I want to explain by that is this is how I do it. I block out the median and all the upper half of the values. So actually ignore everything that I've shaded black for a second. And we're going to just focus on this lower group that's in red and find the median of those. Okay, so I can see there are 7 scores in that red group, in that lower group. So the median score of that red group must be the 4, and therefore the lower quartile is Q1, is 4, so I should say. So we can say lower quartile, or I'm just going to say Q1 must be 4. Okay, now let's do it again for the upper quartile. But this time, so just one second, I'm going to undo a few things. Okay, I'll rewrite what we said a second ago. Okay, so we've already said that this is Q1. So now I want to block out both. Again, I want to show you the median and the lower half, so that none of that exists anymore. And I'm just going to focus on this upper group above the median. So yes, you block out the median as well when you're trying to find the lower and upper quartile. So now let's focus on this red group. There are 7 scores in that red group, so the middle of that must be the 4th score because it'll have 3 on either side. So the 4th score is 8. So Q3 must be 8, or the upper quartile must be 8. So for C, Q3 or the upper quartile is 8. Okay, now I just realized I made a mistake. Shouldn't be Q2 back there. That should be Q1. Sorry. Okay, so now we found the median, lower quartile, and upper quartile. Let's find the range. Now we can definitely do that easily. We didn't even need to find the others. Just the highest score minus the lowest score, which is 9 minus 1, which is 8. I recommend writing the 9 minus 1 first and then putting the 8. I know it's something you can do in your head, but it's worth doing, I think, to show you're working. Now the interquartile range, and generally even in exams I just write as IQR equals, like in my working, is, now remember it's quartile 3 or the upper quartile minus quartile 1. By the way, sometimes they write the upper quartile as QU for upper, and the lower quartile is QL for lower. Just so you know, sometimes that notation is used. Both are correct. Okay, so Q3 is 8, minus Q1 is 4, so the interquartile range is 4. Okay, well, next lesson we'll kind of talk more about the significance of the interquartile range. Okay, so just to do one example, find the interquartile range for the following data. Now, you might think, oh, well, they haven't asked for the median and everything, so maybe I don't have to put them in order. The thing is, the quartiles and the median all require you to put the data in order first, and only then would you be able to find the interquartile range. So we still have to do that. So the smallest value is a 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. 2 6s, I think. 7, 8, and 2 9s. Okay, so now, before I can find the quartiles, I absolutely have to find the median. Okay, so let's have a look. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 scores. Now remember, the median is the 10 plus 1 over 2 score, which is 11 over 2, which is 5.5. So what does that tell me? That tells me the median is between the 5th and 6th score. So if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the median is actually in there. So remember, that's Q2. And that's like the average of the 2 scores on either side, which is 6 and 6. So it's just going to be 6. But I'll do the process anyway, just to remind you. 6 plus 6 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. So that's the median. Now here's the tricky thing. You know how in last time we blocked out the median and the upper half to find the lower quartile. I'm going to do that again here. But because the median was between two scores, it's kind of like I block out that middle bit between the scores and then I go upwards. So I'm blocking out like where the arrow is first, and then I go up. So this the 6 below the median is still included in the lower part of the scores. So now what I've highlighted red there is actually the lower part, which is what I'll find the median for now, to find the lower quartile. So hopefully that makes sense. So the lower quartile would be the median of this red group, which is this one here, 4, so that there is Q1. And now for the upper quartile, well, actually I've already, this black group is actually now the upper part above, like 6, 7, 8, 9, and 9 are all actually above the median in a sense, because the median's position is in between those two 6s. So now I want to find the median of the black group, which is this score here, and that's Q3. So now that I've done all that, I can actually find the interquartile range is Q3, which is 8, minus Q1, which is 4. Once again, it's 8 minus 4, which happens to be 4. Okay, and it is possible that your upper and lower quartile could be the average of two scores, like the median was in this case. You know, if there are an even number of scores. For instance, if there was also a 1 here, just as a quick example, the quartile 1 would be the average of 3 and 4, for instance, but that's changing the question. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So I just want to go over again. If you have an odd number of scores, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is the median, or Q2. And then Q1 would take just the lowest section without the median and find the median, say, of 1 and 2, which in this case would actually be between the average of 1 and 2, which would be 1.5. And the upper quartile, in this case, is the average of 4 and 5, which would be 4.5. If you have an even number of scores, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just an example, the median is between 3 and 4, so it's like 3.5. And then the lower quartile is the median of these 3 scores, which happens to be a 2. And the upper quartile is the median of these 4, 5, 6, which happens to be, oops, I just realized I made another mistake. That was supposed to be a 2, apologize. So that Q3 is 5. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so now the set work from that is 20C, so probably alternate questions there. So your work is 20B.1 and B.2. Just a bit of each is fine. And then some of 20C, just making sure you feel like you're confident in all these skills. Thank you.